Hi, good morning and good afternoon, depends on where you are. Yeah, I am Yanyan Hu, Project Director on Clinical Quality Informatics team at the Joint Commission. I'm also a measure developer. Before going to our topic, I would like to give you some background of the Joint Commission. What is the Joint Commission? For more than 70 years, the Joint Commission has been a global driver of quality improvement and patient safety in healthcare. We accredit and certify more than 23,000 healthcare organizations, serves over 70 countries globally. As we all know, that FHIR has the potential to reduce the overall burden associated with quality measurement, enabling better alignment with EHR data while improving alignment between clinical decision support and the measurement. As the leading developer of hospital-based electronic clinical quality measure, we also call it eCQM, in the United States, the Joint Commission is translating existing measure to FHIR to advance QI core to support quality measurement. In this session, I will give a brief overview of a FHIR measure conversion, lessons learned, and our collaboration with stakeholders to enhance FHIR implementation guides. As illustrated here, FHIR provides the foundation and sets of profiles are built on top of base FHIR. Within the US realm, US core profiles comprise the base consents. However, the profiles do not represent all of the requirements for the quality improvement. The QI core profiles derives from US core and provide the additional functionalities. I have mentioned the QI core implementation guide already, and we'll reference it throughout the presentation. So what is the QI core? The QI core IG defines a set of FHIR profiles with extensions and bindings needed to create interoperability, quality-focused application. It is a version-specific data model built directly on top of US core and the base FHIR, base resources. This is a snippet of the QI core patient profile. It takes the US core elements of race, ethnicity, and the birth sex highlighted in red, and then extends even more with religion, birthplace, and nationality highlighted in yellow. This diagram shows you the eCQM standards in the US. The eCQM standard involvement began with quality data model, QDM logic, and the QDM data model. Starting 2019 reporting year, the clinical quality language, CQL, has been used for logic expressions to calculate the measure outcomes. When transitioning to FHIR-based quality measurement, the QI core replaces QDM data model. How do we convert an eCQM to FHIR measure? Here is the overview of the process. So first, select the QDM version of the eCQM and identify the QDM data elements and attributes from the measure specification. Then we reference the mapping table in the QI core IG to find the QI core equivalents, and translate the retrievers and the definitions from QDM version to FHIR version in the measure authoring tool. Lastly, we named the FHIR measure to distinguish the same measure from QDM version. So how exactly do we determine the QI core equivalence? The red arrow is pointing to the QDM to QI core page in QI core IG. This is an important resource when converting to FHIR measures. The conversion process is not always simply as one-to-one mapping. Sometimes one QDM element needs multiple FHIR elements to represent. Here is an example. On the left-hand side, in QDM, assessment performed risk for VTE is structured by a data element and a value set. But the QI core defines a general observation profile. So in this case, in FHIR measure, it is converted to QI core observation profile, and with additional element category equivalent to exam to specify what type of observation it is. In addition, from this example, you notice that laboratory test performed for INR is converted to US core profile directly. Similarly, some elements are unique to FHIR. For example, here in QI core encounter profile, the status represents current state of encounter. It is a required data element with a required binding to encounter status value set defined in FHIR, where encounter status could be finished, in progress, or canceled. Total of 9 codes showed on the lower right corner table. But the QDM data model does not have this ability to specify the status. This is an advantage of using FHIR for quality measures. Now let me share with you how we identify the limitations in the QI core profile. One is because we found missing equivalence from mapping table or QI core profile during our measure conversion process. Here is example how to express a principal procedure. The principal procedure is a procedure performed for definitive treatment or is taking care of complication. Usually it is stored as a first code on the procedure list. One patient could have multiple surgical procedures performed during the encounter, but only one procedure code can be reported as principal. This is important. This is very important for a quality measure to define a principal procedure to meet the measure intent. For example, one of our measure is excluding some selective surgery monitored in the surgical care improvement project. Without identification, those procedures could be unintentionally included in the measure and resulted in an inaccurate performance rate. During the conversion process, we noticed that no mapping equivalent for principal procedure in QI core mapping table, nor in the QI core procedure profile. Another limitation we noticed was that no FHIR resource can be used to represent clinical flow and the measure intent properly. For example, substance is defined as a homogeneous material with definitive composition. QDM defines 3 contexts for substance: substance administered, substance ordered, substance recommended. Thus, the QDM substance is mapped to QI core medication concepts. However, from our conversion process, we found that 2 instances are inconsistent with the medication resources concepts. One is to determine blood products are ordered or administered. 2 is to determine human milk is fed to the newborns. One of our PC newborn measures is exclusive human milk feeding. The measure evaluates if breast milk or any dietary intake other than breast milk was fed to the newborn. These data elements are usually documented in the feeding flow sheets or intake output records. As mentioned earlier, due to a lack of an appropriate FHIR resource, we use procedure for feeding action and use the code to capture breast milk and the other feeding as workaround. Once we found out issues and challenges, how did we address them to the regulators and stakeholders? One way is through the IG ballot review process by submitting our feedback issues. Those IG, including not limited to the following implementation guides, such as FHIR implementation guide, US Core, QI Core. Another way to address our finding is through the work group meetings. Here are some platforms. Oh, sorry. Like HL7 FHIR Connect-On, clinical reasoning track is to test the use of FHIR resources in alignment with a specific QI Core IG, quality measure IG. The working group meetings event usually occurs right after Connect-On and focus on HL7 standards in support of measure, evaluation, and a report. Weekly working group conference calls such as order and observation patient care working group calls to discuss ballot review, feedback, and any like ad hoc request. The quality data implementation user group, it's a non-HL7 call, but it is publicly accessible and convened in the US. After our discussion with regulators and stakeholders, how our feedback informs future versions of IGs. The QI Core, US Core, and the FHIR IGs have their own development cycle. Here you see the most recent QI Core R5 was released in April 2023 this year, which aligns with US Core R5 released in May last year. The US Core R5 is based on FHIR R4. The first FHIR IG was released in October 2019, and the most recent version R4B was released in May 2022 last year. Here, I'm using the same examples represented in the earlier slides to show you what have been changed in the subsequent versions of QI Core IG or base FHIR IG, as well as the changes in our FHIR measures. Example 1 here, principal procedure. As you notice on the right-hand side, a QI Core procedure extension was added to encounter profile in QI Core IG version 4.0. From this extension, rank and the integer value are now available. So principal procedure is now able to be expressed properly in this structure. Sorry. For this example 2, we worked with example 2 for the substance conversion. We worked with order and observation nutrition work for a year. Finally, 2 new FHIR resources, nutrition intake and the nutrition product, were approved in June 2020. So human milk and infant formula feeding have been properly expressed in the, could be used, expressed in the measure. But when it will be included to the QI Core IG quality measure use, we are currently working with working groups to make it available as soon as possible. So, okay, that's all I have for today's presentation. Thank you all for attending my session.
I think we might have some questions in the room. Is that anyone here have any questions? In that case, thank you very much, Yanyan.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks.